Yep.
Go.
All right, I was in a coaching session with Greg and Heather. This was back in February, and Greg asked me the question, Joel, what makes up your insecurity pie? It was kind of a good visual. I hate pie, but it helped me think through like what are the different slices that kind of make up what I'm insecure about. So I said, being young, being a white teacher, working with primarily minority leaders in training camp, being inexperienced in teaching. As I thought about it, I realized there were more slices to my pie than I realized. Back in October or November, Curtis asked Delta Fellows, what is your poverty? And I remember back then being nervous to answer because I didn't want to give a cheesy or a trite answer, especially when I was hearing what other Delta Fellows were answering the question with. A lot of depth, a lot of hurt in their answer to what is your poverty. Well, if we're defining poverty as a lack of something or a deficit, then my insecurity for sure is one of my poverties. It hijacks the growth and potential impact that can happen through me and within me, and it also greatly affects my faith in God, because God's power and goodness is limited in my own head to whatever I'm able to accomplish, and that's surely a poverty. I really think that the theme of these past 4 months in my life, by the Lord's grace, has been coming face to face with a lot of these different slices of my pie, and by the Lord's grace, seeing the pie get a little bit smaller, and in the same time seeing a stronger God. So with that being said, I want to proudly point out, with the support of the staff, all of you around me, and through the Lord's strength, what the Lord has accomplished through me these past 4 months. So I'll start out with recruitment. As part of the recruitment team, I got 40 interest forms through Uprise and Upstream Impact, and that translated to 2 leaders actually joining the program. That was far, far, far below what I had anticipated and what my goal was, which was 10 leaders. And I'm realizing as I look back that was a little bit naive. It was a lofty goal, which a lofty goal was good, but I didn't realize how much time I was going to have to spend in training camp. And when I actually count my hours spent recruiting while training camp was going on, it was only about 3 to 4 hours a week. So that was part of the reason why I fell short there. As a primary computer teacher, I created 25 lesson plans. The way I went about doing that was, for one, by sitting in on computer classes. Did one at the Workforce Center at Montbello, and another one at the Denver Public Library. I was at the Denver Central Library, and I walked into this Google Drive class, and there's 5 other people in there. The next youngest person is like in their 50s, and the pace of this class was just really slow, and I'm sitting there and it's a 3-hour class. And I was thinking, this is probably what like a decent group of people feel like in my class. So it's good to kind of get the feeling of, here's what it could be like to have like a lot of knowledge about computers, which some of our leaders do have, and to be with other people who are just learning about computers. In addition to sitting in on the classes, I talked with 3 computer teachers to pick their brains and ask them questions about what I can improve in computer classes. I talked to one guy, and he said, you really just have to be flexible. You can't anticipate the speed that you're going to go through. At some points, you'll get through like 3 lessons in what should have been 1 lesson class, and other times you'll get through half a lesson. And I was like, thanks, so I just gotta be ready for whatever. But he turned out to be absolutely right, because in Uprise, we ended the year with, we ended the training camp with about 4 or 5 lessons that we didn't get to cover, just because of the pace of the class. And currently going through Upstream, they're just like blazing through the material. And I'm like, slow down, I don't have anything I can teach you if you guys get through all this. So, cooled a little bit. Another task I had was to buy 42 laptops for training camp. It was a task I was given back in January. Unfortunately, this was a roadblock that I ran into because the computers came in late, which meant a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of problem solving. We had to use some of the old laptops for the first 2 weeks, and that meant that we had a frenzied week of installing Microsoft Office, Mavis Beacon, getting the laptops prepared for the leaders. And it was worth all the stress of that week because we got new laptops. Woo-hoo. Obviously, that was an exaggeration. The older ones are not that old, but it's been a huge help having those newer laptops. They've made it smoother, internet connection has been far better, and it's just a more professional environment when they're using laptops that just work well. And after all of that, preparing lesson plans, going to classes, talking to computer teachers, I became a computer teacher. I've been embracing it. So once training camp started, I began to teach 3 to 4 times a week. I co-taught, or primarily taught, over 20 classes for Uprise, and then we're midway through Upstream right now, and I've taught 10 classes in that. In addition to being a computer teacher, I'm also learning how to lead a team of Brett, Alex, and myself. Go right through here. We're the tech guys at training camp. It became apparent early on in training camp that it was not going to work for me to teach a group of 35 people. This is just another example of things happening, us being flexible and moving on. So Brett and Alex stepped up, and they've been huge in teaching the other group. We split it down to people who have more experience, go with one group, and then people who have less experience with computers go to the other group. I remember early on, there's a group of 35 people, they're all together, and I had a few people over here who asked me, Joel, how do I shut down a computer? And then I had another guy over here who was asking me if I could help him code. And I was like, I definitely cannot help you code. Do not know how to do that. I can help you shut down a computer. So, splitting up the classes has been huge. And I want to stop for a second, and there's training camp staff right there, and point out one big thing that I've learned from the training camp staff is how to be like a chameleon, basically. Whatever anything is thrown at you, I've just seen the staff be incredibly flexible, like incredible problem solvers. There's always something unforeseen that quickly comes up that requires really quick acting, whether it's a lesson that needs to be changed because we suddenly don't have internet connection, or somebody's schedule gets flipped around, they're sick. You know, we're teaching, you have to be teaching. Somebody gets sick and somebody just steps in. And that's been awesome to see modeled, and they get to be a part of that. Like, I'm learning a lot just from that right there. Alex and Brett have been, they've been huge. I just wanted to point out, Alex and Brett have been huge. Them stepping up to be teachers in the other class was like a massive problem for me that they stepped up and they helped me solve. So all of that, recruiting, creating lesson plans, ordering computers, sitting in on computer classes, working in a team with training camp has culminated in this. 27 leaders finishing training camp and taking the next step towards exiting economic poverty. That's something that I have been a part of, and that is something that I am very proud of to have been a part of. These are the graduates from the first training camp. We're midway through another training camp, but we have 2 more coming up this year. I'm just getting started, and that's really good because I know that there's a lot that I have to learn and a lot that I can implement from what I'm learning. When I presented my PDP in January, my desire was to learn how to teach. My plan was to primarily pursue that through download. So getting with the computer metaphors. I'm teaching computers, and by download I mean reading, sitting in on classes, observing, basically being a sponge. Well, being a sponge is good, but a sponge doesn't make a good teacher. It's incomplete. And the reason for that is that a sponge is taking a lot of things in, but they're not reflecting and evaluating. They're not grappling with how their own beliefs or core insecurities, like I talked about in the very first, in the intro, how their insecurities, core beliefs are affecting what they're sponging up and how they're presenting that to others. My downloading approach was a good start, but it is incomplete. What I need in addition to that is reflection and evaluation. So my main focus in January was to learn how to teach. That was only a few months ago, but now I want to learn how how to teach better. That's what I'm looking forward to in the future. I'm no longer scared that I will not be able to stand in front of a class of 20 people and teach for 80 minutes. I know that I can do that because I've done it 30 times already. But at this point, I want to know how I can do that better, how I can reach people's hearts, how I can teach in a way that multiple learning styles are able to learn, and in a way that challenges those who are already really experienced with computers and also brings along those who are struggling. An impromptu learning experience for me, where I actually received some evaluation and feedback for me to change, happened during Friday feedback. Rhonda, right there in the middle, is one of the leaders. And what happens during Friday feedback is the last thing we do on Fridays, and leaders pick a growth area and something that they've seen as strength in other leaders, and they point that out. So Rhonda didn't go to another leader. She came over to me and she said, Joel, we can see that you care about training camp and you care about us. You're doing great at teaching computers, but you can ask for help. I want to let you know that some of us can help you in the class. And I've thought about that a lot. And just like that, a blind spot was revealed to me by Rhonda. I was wasting the resources that were in class. We had untapped computer knowledge, and I was getting drained because I was having to answer questions from people who were a little slower with class, but I knew that there were people who were just like sitting there bored in their seats. So we started doing that. Some of the leaders became teacher's aides, the ones that were more like confident with teaching computer. It was a small statement from the leader who gave me feedback, but it was a really huge step forward for me, and it created big results in computer class. So my goal for this next semester is doing, reflecting, evaluating, and doing again. I want to reflect on my lessons after I teach them. I want to identify what was successful, what was not successful, and make changes from that. The way I do that is by receiving useful, honest feedback from leaders on how I can improve, and receive evaluations from teachers who sit in on my class. I plan to have 3 leaders fill out an evaluation form every other time I teach, and I want to have at least 3 staff evaluate my teaching